You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and this time is Christmas is almost here. We're in the holiday spirit, and we have our special returning guest, Michael Johnson. He's the president of the Slavic Gospel Association. You go to the website, sga.org. We're going to come back with some updates. And first and foremost, I want to say to you, Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming back on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time. I know there's a lot going on. You have some updates on us. Your organization is on the front lines of humanitarian and faith-based relief in Ukraine. As winter is setting in and we know it gets cold around this time, let us know what's going on with the ongoing conflict and what are some of the things your organization is doing to help deliver not just firewood and blankets, but life-saving support to families in need right now.
Yeah, it's, as I'm sure your listening audience knows, this conflict has been going on for a number of years now, and there has been negotiations to try to institute a ceasefire. We're not quite sure where we are with that, but in the meantime, the people in Ukraine, as well as the people in Russia to a large degree, based upon the casualties that are mounting up in the war, are all suffering. And so in the case of Ukraine, we're heading into winter. Winters are long and cold and harsh in those countries. And so that one of the things the Russians have been doing is targeting their power infrastructure and blowing up their heating centers and so the country is really in a difficult situation now, because in a situation like this, if you don't have access to heat in your home, there's going to be some real problems there. And so we're doing all we can to address this particular problem. We have a program that we call Heat and Hope. And what we've been doing is partnering with, we have access to roughly 2,500 churches throughout Ukraine. And these are Baptist evangelical churches. And we're providing generators and food and blankets and clothing to these churches for distribution to the people in their communities. And this gives them an opportunity to minister to these folks both in word and deed. And everybody that comes to the church for help, many times they'll stay a few days to sleep at the church, because one of the things that we provide are larger generators for use in the churches, so people can come and get warm, charge their phones, do what they need to do before they go back home. And so it really has turned into a center of hope for the people in these cities, towns, and villages. And it's been a very successful program as well. And these folks, when they come to the churches, when they see just, again, the acts of mercy of these folks there, they'll typically come back. And this is one way in which Christ is building his church throughout that country in the midst of this conflict.
Once again, this on Refocused Radio, watching us online, make sure you go to Michael's website, sga.org. When you think about nearly 40% of Ukraine's power stations being destroyed, what does daily life look like for families who are trying to survive this winter?
Well, as you can well imagine, it's very difficult. I think some of the schools are still open, so the children can go to school and stay warm. But once they leave, they're going back to homes where there's no heat and no access to coal or firewood or whatever. And it's just a struggle, and it's a day-to-day struggle. And so again, it's not just the heat; it's the economy is in a difficult situation. It's the constant tension of waking up in the middle of the night and hearing drones and missiles flying overhead. It's just a high stress situation that people have to live through day in and day out in that country. And we just continue to pray for the end of the war, so that these people can get their lives back. And we continue to pray for President Trump and his team of negotiators to bring an end to this.
And with the Heat and Hope campaign, generators are game changer. What are some of the ways that you're helping that be instilled for these families?
Well, again, we have access to either large generators that are given to the churches, so that the churches can, heat their buildings, so that the people can come and sort of readjust and get warm, and have fellowship, and have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, and if they need to spend the night at the church, they can do that because of how cold it is in their homes. But then there's smaller generators as well that we provide individuals so that they can heat their homes while they're there, and we're just doing everything we can. Again, because for us, it's we don't send missionaries over to those countries. We work through the national churches, and it's the national churches that are on the ground, going out and ascertaining the need that exists during this difficult time, and they bring that list back to us, and through our organization, we'll help to provide the resources that have been requested from the field, and then we get the reports back of how those resources are being used, how it's impacting the physical lives of those people, as well as the spiritual lives of the people. And one of the things that we see is, out of all the countries in the former Soviet Union, Ukraine is considered the buckle of the Bible Belt, because there are more evangelical churches in Ukraine on a per capita basis than throughout all of Western Europe, as well as Eastern Europe and the former Soviet countries. Christ seems to be doing a significant work in Ukraine as he builds his church, and we get to be a part of facilitating that. Our supporters, your listeners, the folks that pray, as well as the folks that provide resources to us, so that we can get these resources out into the field. And there are areas in particular that are difficult, like in the eastern part of Ukraine, where the war continues to rage on. The people living in those areas are really caught in the middle, and again, they're in the middle of the fighting, and they look around and they just see death and destruction and missiles and drones every single day, and because they got nowhere else to go. So whatever aid we can provide them through our ministry, and as we pray that the Lord provides the resources, these people are getting shown the love of Christ by these wonderful churches, their pastors and their workers during again a very difficult time.
You're listening and watching us online on Refocused Radio, talking to our special guest today, Michael Johnson, president of Slavic Gospel Association. Go to their website, sga.org. You spoke on how some areas are very difficult, understandably so, because of what's going on. When you think about the leadership that's on the front lines, pastors who are having to wear body armor just to deliver aid, what does that speak to you personally about the leadership over there?
These are brave people. I mean, these people have a commitment to reach their nation for Christ, and if it means going into a war zone, they're driving they try to mark their vehicles in a way that identifies them as humanitarian aid workers, but a lot of times that's either ignored or just not goes unnoticed, and they've been targeted, and but they just keep going back, because they know that this is the ministry to which they have been called, that there are people who are struggling and dying out there, and they have access to the resources to meet their both physical and spiritual needs, and again, you were just seeing tremendous fruit as a result of this program, and these are just wonderful, godly people who are doing what God has called them to do.
We often talk about faith in comfortable settings, and if you look at this situation, these are people who are oftentimes cold and living underneath some very uncomfortable areas in life. What's some of the things that you hope that our viewers and our listeners can appreciate and learn from their faith and how they practice their faith over there?
Well, I guess for me, we live in the richest nation in the history of the world, and the Christians in America are very generous, and it's our job. We have a connection to one particular part of the world, and that's the countries of the former Soviet Union and Eastern Europe. And our ministry was started in 1934. And so there are many people that have a heart for that part of the world, and they have a desire to do whatever they can to meet the needs of the people in those countries, and again, not only physically but spiritually. So we are a conduit to these faithful churches. These churches are out on a regular basis, connecting with people, helping people, ministering to people, praying with people, and the only thing we ask for and pray for is that God would work in the hearts of the Christians here in America, and build a bridge between them and the needs that do exist over there, so that they can be a part of the spiritual harvest that is taking place in Ukraine, as well as the other countries in that part of the world.
We think about sustaining morale. What are some of the things that your team does to help them know that they're not alone, as far as the leadership on the front lines over there trying to hold down everything as they are navigating some difficult times?
Yeah, well, the main thing is they invite them to church, and when they come to church, if they're coming just for humanitarian purposes or just because God has worked in their heart to come, it's there that they are able to experience the sweet fellowship that only comes through a network of strong, spiritually mature believers, all of whom are on a path to spiritual maturity. And these folks, they just, a lot of them, their lives are just broken, through alcoholism, through, family problems, through domestic violence, and starvation. The church is there for them. And again, that's how Christ is building this church. And so we're seeing many, many examples of that. We support ministry up in the Chernobyl region, up near where the Chernobyl nuclear disaster took place. And we've been ministering there for many years. Lives were impacted by that, and they continue to be impacted by that to this day. And so we supported a series of churches up there, one in particular that's doing a wonderful job reaching and touching the lives of people in that very remote area.
Once again, listening and watching us online on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Michael Johnson, president of the Slavic Gospel Association, is an organization that has been on the front lines of humanitarian and faith-based relief in Ukraine. And we're talking about winter is here, cold weather is here, but they are delivering not just firewood, generators, blankets, but they are giving life-saving support to families who are living in these war zones. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for your organization, for the great work that you're doing. When someone's watching this and listening to this and they feel like they're just overwhelmed with all the news and all the stuff that's going on around the world, and they kind of feel, I want to support. What is there some kind of way I can have some kind of valuable contribution to organizations like yours? If someone's thinking about that, what's the best way they can support?
Well, there's two ways. One is you can come to our website, and it's sga.org/heat and hope. And you'll end up on a landing page that will describe the exact way in which we execute that particular program. Or you can call us. We have an 800 number. It's called 1-800-BIBLE-50. That's 1-800-BIBLE-50.
When you are looking ahead, when you are looking ahead, 2026 is going to be here in a flash. How long do you anticipate this need lasting, and what does a long-term recovery actually look like for you in participating in this relief?
Well, in terms of how long it lasts, only God knows the answer to that question. I mean, again, we've been serving those churches for many, many years. And the dark years under communism, we were one of the few organizations that were able to get the Word of God into those countries through our partnership with Transworld Radio, FEBC, and HCJB. And so we really kept those countries open for the gospel, and also our covert Bible distribution strategy was really quite effective as well. So, depending on what happens, we're committed to that part of the world. When the circumstances change, we have the flexibility to adjust our ministry to the situation because of the relationship that we have with the churches on the ground in those countries.
My last question for you, Mr. Johnson, is if you had one message to say during this holiday season, a lot of people are going to be celebrating Christmas pretty soon. What would you want to say to our viewers and listeners?
Well, I would say that as we are able to spend time with our family, relax after a long year, and as we think about the way in which God has blessed us in our country, we have opportunities to be able to use what God has given us to bless people in other countries. And, there are countries all over the world that need this help. Again, our focus is on the former Soviet countries. There's still certain levels of persecution that are taking place there, so Christians are under pressure, particularly in some of the smaller stand countries. We're seeing some pressure in Russia right now. Ukraine is pretty much open, so praise the Lord. The Lord opened that country up for ministry of the true gospel, and so just commit yourself to prayer. And if this is part of the world you're interested in, we'd love to be able to facilitate a relationship between your listeners and the churches that Christ is building in those countries.
Once again, been watching us and listening to us on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Michael Johnson, president of the Slavic Gospel Association. Remember, go to their website. It's real simple, sga.org. And with that, like always, I want to say to you, Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming back, and thank you for your time. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas to you as well.